Okay, so today's story, honestly, I'm just gonna quickly explain that I have no idea why this has happened in my classroom, but it is what it is. A lot of crazy things happen in high school, and hell, I think that's one of the reasons why I have the high school survival series to begin with. And also, before the story starts, I do have two crazy announcements I have to mention. The Bubba channel that you guys know and love that usually has the shorts involved in there has now officially released its IRL series, where you guys actually get to meet my Fortnite girlfriend in person. Yes, I said it here first, and honestly, if you guys do want to go check that out, link is in the description down below. I highly advise going to subscribe to that channel and watching that video because things do get kind of crazy. And on top of that, did I mention that I'm currently live streaming on Twitch? So if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys go click the link in the description down below and watch me live streaming to you guys and telling more of these crazy stories. Now, other than that, let's get straight into this insane story. All right, yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy episode of a crazy story time, as usual. So today's story is about something that, as you guys read from the title, yes, this is literally catching my teacher on the Devil's Hub in class. Honestly, I don't know how this happened, but I can quickly explain some backstory. So I remember back when I was in grade 9, this was my first year of high school, and honestly, I was just an average freshman in high school. Now, honestly, I didn't know much about being in high school. Hell, I literally just got out of middle school, so, you know, me entering the world of high school, well, yeah, it's a long story short. Actually, funny enough, I posted my first episode of me being in high school a while back, so if you guys do really know how my first day went, you guys can go check there. But I want to say a couple months going into high school when things were just getting more comfortable for me, I remember something insane that happened. And basically, it was in my socials class. So in my socials class, I remember we had this substitute teacher that was some really old fat guy that, let's just say, can clearly tell that he had no life going for him. Like, I'm gonna be honest, if you're like in your 40s and still teaching and, well, single and lonely, which this guy really did show, and yes, he did not have a ring on his finger, so we did know he was single and lonely, you can already tell that this guy was a lost cause. And honestly, it sucked. And I remember the first day when I saw him entering that classroom and going straight through the door, seeing him there was, well, not worth it. If you guys don't know, I basically had a really hot teacher in that social studies class, and long story short, let's just say me and her had some history. But other than that, we'll put that aside. Going on with this old fat guy, I remember when he came up in front of the class, and it was basically his first day there, he stood up in front of the class and said, "All right, everybody, open to page 25. We're gonna be studying the Declaration of Independence." Yeah, like, he was so monotone to the point where I just wanted to pass out. Like, it wasn't even worth being there. And I want to say this went on for at least like almost 2 months of him just straight up being a loser. I didn't know why my other teacher wasn't coming back, and I didn't understand what happened to her. So I remember one day I decided to walk up to my teacher, and as I was walking up to my teacher, the substitute, I remember right as I was about to walk towards him, he slams his laptop closed. And I remember looking at him all weird and stuff because I had no idea what was on that laptop. I don't know if he was putting our grades in. I don't know if he was, you know, checking our work or something. I have no idea what was on that laptop. But the way he slammed it really seemed suspicious. And to be honest, you don't really do that with a laptop, especially a school laptop. So I remember I walked up to him and I was like, "Hey, so I'm just curious, when is our other teacher coming back?" He looks at me with a smirk and he's like, "Why would you ask that? That's not really a good question to ask your teacher when he's here." Because I want to know where my other hot teacher is. Like, hello? Like, I didn't say that, but honestly, that was in my mind at the time. And I just said, "Oh, like, you know, I'm just raising concern." He looks at me and says, "Oh, like, she had to go on leave for a bit. Apparently some family emergency." Which made no sense, but you know what? It is what it is. So I remember going back to my seat and I sat down and basically just went through the whole entire day with him again, with another boring class. Now, I want to say this is the part where things get really spicy. And I usually don't say the word spicy, so you know this is good. I remember he announced to the class, "All right, guys, we have a test coming up on the Renaissance. So, yeah, just study for that. We'll be doing it this Friday." Now, obviously, when a teacher announced the test, usually everyone's like freaking out and worried. And me, I didn't really care because I did like the Renaissance times. Funny enough, if you guys do your research, it's pretty cool, but I'm not a teacher. I'm here to tell you how this guy was weird and awkward. So going on with the story, I remember when Friday came up and we were all going to the classroom, sitting down and getting ready to do our test. We all sat down and I remember he basically handed out our worksheets and everything, but something was off about him. He was walking really weird and it seemed like he was literally waddling around the classroom. I don't know if it's because he was super fat or something, but something was off. So I remember when he sat down and everyone's doing their tests, I did my test and everything, and since I enjoyed the test, I ended up doing great on it. But I remember as I was doing the test, out of nowhere, we just hear a fapping sound. just like that. Honestly, at first I thought it was maybe something on like their headphones or, you know, maybe something from outside, like a propeller or something. I have no idea. But then I remember when I looked at my teacher, his arm was vibrating. Like it was literally vibrating. Like he was like a machine. Something was off about it. And I remember it wasn't just me that noticed, like 3 other girls in my class noticed and they all looked at him funny. And I had no idea what was going on. So I remember I kind of just looked around and I'm like, what the heck is going on, dude? Like what is going on with this guy's hand? And I remember I finished my test really early. So I remember I got up and the teacher wasn't looking at me. And as I walked up to him, I put the paper down and he didn't notice I was right beside him. And I looked directly at his screen. And the one thing I see that I did not want to see was him literally on the Devil's Hub. Literally watching it in the middle of class. I had no idea what to do at this point. I was freaking out. I was like, no way. He's doing this literally right in front of me. Honestly, like I'm happy I went up because, you know, as like the alpha male, I can handle watching those things with others. Sorry, that's besides the point. But like I was saying though, I was literally panicking and I was like kind of freaked out. And I remember this other chick was walking up, and as this other chick was walking up, he slams the laptop closed. But when he slammed it closed, he looks around beside him and sees me right there, literally right beside him. And he starts being all pissed off at me. He's like, why'd you get off your seat? What are you doing up here? You shouldn't be up here. I was working on our tests and grades. And then I looked at him and I just smiled. I literally just smiled. I wasn't gonna yell it to the class, oh, he's watching the Devil's Hub. Like, I'm not just gonna say that out loud. So I remember what the teacher decides to do is that he decides to grab me by my shoulder and literally walk me outside of the classroom and close the door. And he looks at me and says, okay, what do I gotta do not to make you talk? I look at him and I'm like, dude, like, what's wrong with you? And I'm not even joking. I literally said it in those words. He looked at me more pissed off, but I had dirt on him. So there's really nothing he can do. Because God knows if, let's say, a principal just walks by in the classroom and literally like decides to go on his browser history, well, guess what you're gonna find? Literally him on the Devil's Hub. So knowing this, honestly, I remember he looks at me, he's like, seriously, like, what do you want me to do? Like, how can we put this just behind us? Trying to act all professional and stuff, but I hate to break it to you, fat guy. You're literally beating your meat in the middle of class. Like, dude, you need to chill. I remember as he was basically begging me to not say anything and, you know, keep this low key and not say a word, I looked at him and I told him, we can make a deal. He looks at me and he's like, Baba, I don't know what you want me to do, but I don't think I can do it if that's what you're wondering. What? No, we gotta make a deal. That's what I told him. And he's like, what do you want? And I said, for every test you hand out, I automatically get an A. No matter how much I fail it, no matter how much I do, and all that cool stuff. And if I'm skipping class, you still have to put down on the sheet that I attended class. He looked at me really worried and he was like really pissed off because he knew that that could literally cost him his job. But at the same time, me watching him beat his meat and literally going on the Devil's Hub would have done the same. So we came to an agreement. We shook hands, which I shook his other hand, by the way, just to make sure things are clear, okay? And yeah, let's just say for the rest of the school year, I don't really remember much of social studies because, well, the fat guy taught it the rest of the school year, apparently, because I attended all my classrooms on paper. But other than that, that is basically it for today's story. So make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And on top of that, did I mention that I literally introduced my Fortnite girlfriend on my other channel? So I highly advise you guys go check that out because it's literally my Fortnite girlfriend. I know, crazy. I have a girlfriend. But other than that, like I usually say, fall for more embarrassing stories. All right, peace out, guys. So many people in their lives have secrets. Even I have my secrets. But today's story is about how I found out my teacher's secret. Or in reality, it was my substitute teacher, but close enough. But before I do get into the story, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because we got a lot more crazy stories on this channel than you guys expect. Also, not to mention, I go live on Kick streaming and telling crazy stories just like this one. So if you haven't joined it on the Kick streams, please do it because, well, it's more embarrassing telling these live than on YouTube. But anyways, let's get straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story is about, well, if you guys read the title, my teacher was a Devil's Hub star, and the way this ended up happening was super weird. I remember one day I ended up going to physical education class, or PE as people would say, and when I went there, I remember our teacher that we originally had, the old sweaty guy that no one liked, wasn't there. I remember me and my class, we all stood around the gym not knowing what was going on until out of nowhere, a really really hot blonde walked in. Now, no one recognized this girl, and she wasn't that tall. So us thinking that she was another student, I remember I walked up to her and said, oh yeah, the teacher isn't here yet, so you're not late, but honestly, like, whoever this teacher is, bro, is mad dumb. I remember the girl ended up looking at me and said, you do realize I'm your teacher, right? Huh? Is what I said. And then that's when I figured out that she was a substitute teacher filling in for our old man teacher that no one liked. I remember I looked at her and said, oh, sorry, I didn't know, is what I said. And she said, oh, like, just don't worry about it. Anyways, I remember basically from there, we ended up basically getting an introduction and people called her Mrs. M. She didn't want to say her actual name for some reason, which I guess we kind of respected, but we didn't understand why. Going on from there, I remember basically we did the class. We, you know, ran around the gym, we played dodgeball, and that was basically it. But I remember after class, when class ended, all the guys went to the locker room to basically get changed to normal clothing since we were in our PE class clothing. And out of nowhere, when all the guys were in there changing their clothes, one of the really weird guys in our class, kind of like a nerd, but more, I guess, creepy in a way, ended up speaking up saying, did no one recognize who our teacher just was? I remember all the guys started looking at him thinking, what is he talking about? And then that's when he said, bro, don't you know, like, our teacher's literally a hub star. When he said that, we all started laughing. Yes, the teacher was really hot, but there's no way the school would invite someone that was literally on the devil's hub into our school. So obviously none of us believed him. But what ended up happening later on, well, proved he was right. I remember what ended up happening was the next day at school, a lot of us went to class early, and the rumor went around that the teacher was a devil's hub star. But obviously no one actually believed it. So as we got ready for PE class, I remember what I decided to do was some investigating. I remember instead of getting changed, I got changed a bit earlier just so I could be at the gym early. And me, instead of waiting in the gym, I decided to walk around and go to the gym office because obviously the gym teacher has his own office. When I went in there, I remember no one was in there. It was just an old, stinky, empty office. So what I decided to do was look around and see if there was any evidence of what the guy said being true. As I was walking around and looking at, you know, basically papers and flyers, one thing I realized was that Mrs. M's last name, because apparently it was on a sheet of paper that had, you know, the class list. So when I looked at her name, I remember I pulled out my phone and took a picture of her name on the top of the paper. When I got it though, I remember I accidentally moved the mouse on the computer, and what I saw really freaked me out because right as I moved it, I remember the screen turned on and Mrs. M's video was literally playing. And if you guys are wondering what video, it was literally her doing the Devil's Tango with 6 other guys. Like, holy cow, dude. I remember I started freaking out and I instantly closed the browser. And when I did, I basically ran out of the office as fast as I could. But as I was about to run out, I ended up bumping into Mrs. M. She looked at me kind of awkwardly saying, Bubba, why were you in my office? No reason. And I ended up going straight to the gym and basically started getting ready for class. I remember all the students were standing around as well, waiting for class to start. And I remember I walked up to the kid that mentioned that Mrs. M was literally a Devil's Hub star. And I told him, bro, don't say this out loud, but I think you're right. He ended up looking at me and said, oh, did you see the video? Yeah, I did see the video, is what I said. And at that point, I remember he started laughing. And when he started laughing, I remember Mrs. M was in front of the class and saw us both laughing. At that point, I remember she looked at both of us and said, Bubba, is something funny you want to say to the class? At that point, I went quiet. I didn't say anything. But then afterwards, I remember the kid beside me that mentioned it said, Mrs. M, how do you walk every day? I remember I looked at the kid and I'm like, gosh, this guy really has some balls. But then Mrs. M didn't know what he was talking about, so she kind of just put it aside and said, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but I walk with 2 legs. Going on from there, I remember basically after gym class that day, me and all the guys went back to the locker room and I decided to express my amazing discovery to the whole entire guys' locker room. Wow, we're really messed up in there, aren't we, boys? But going on, I remember I ended up pulling out my phone and showing the video to basically everyone in the locker room. We were all watching this video and we were all freaking out saying, no way, that's our teacher. But this is where things get really bad, because out of nowhere, I remember Mrs. M ended up walking into the boys' change room. She walked in there because apparently our audio was too loud and she knew what we were watching. And when she walked in there, she walked up to me and said, "Bubba, detention now." Which honestly surprised me, because usually if you do something bad to a teacher, you would get sent to the office. But me, I got sent to detention because she wanted to sit down and talk to me throughout the whole school day about what privacy means and basically teach me lessons about privacy. Which is kind of funny because she's literally an internet devil's tango star. Like, what did she really expect from a bunch of teenagers? I don't know. But to this day, I'm not gonna lie, I still watch Mrs. M's videos once in a while, and I gotta say, she is still fine as hell. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.